Good morning, everyone. Here's your Mormon News Update for October 10th, 2025. Today we are going to discuss temples. First, let's look at some clips from a video that aired on Let's Get Real with Stephen Jones just over a week ago. It features Elder Larry Y. Wilson. His bio on LDS.org says, Elder Larry Y. Wilson was sustained as a General Authority 70 of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints on April 2nd, 2011. He was released October 5th, 2019. He has served in Hong Kong, China as a member of the Asia Area Presidency and at church headquarters as the executive director of the Temple Department. Elder Wilson graduated from Harvard University with a bachelor's degree in English and American literature. He later received a Master of Business Administration degree from the Stanford Graduate School of Business. His professional career involved serving as the Chief Operating Officer for Catholic Healthcare West in San Francisco, California, and as the Senior Vice President for Financial and Strategic Planning for Kaiser Foundation Health Plan. He has also been chairman of the California Healthcare Association, which advocates healthcare public policy on behalf of California hospitals. Elder Wilson has served in a number of church callings, including full-time missionary in Brazil, bishop, stake president, and Area 70. Larry Young Wilson was born in Salt Lake City, Utah on December 31st, 1949. He married Linda McKay in October of 1974. They are the parents of 4 children. They also have some pretty Mormon-centric names. On to the video.
I'd been in the Temple Department for several years before he became the prophet, but I was the executive director of the Temple Department for 3 years. And the last year and a half of that was when President Nelson became the prophet. And it was a very exciting period of time. And there was so much that happened in that 18 months.
Yes, that's right. He was in the Temple Department when Russell Nelson became president and started his temple announcing spree.
In 2016, I became the executive director of the Temple Department. Elder Quentin Cook was the executive director of the council that oversees the Temple and Family History departments, and he created a temple planning committee, which the church had not had previously. And at that time, President Monson hadn't announced any new temples for a few years. Elder Cook wanted me to serve on that committee. I was in there with 2 other general authorities and Bishop Davies.
When I was an all-in active member, I did not realize that there were so many committees governing and running the church. I really thought that it was mostly the top leaders getting direction straight from God.
We developed a plan, presented it to President Monson. It was accepted. We were quite proud of it. It was a 15-year plan. President Monson wanted to proceed at a pace of about 4 to 5 temples per year. Based upon that plan, he announced the first temples he had announced in a few years, I think it was 2014.
So some guys employed by the church presented a temple building plan to the prophet and it got approved. Does not sound like revelation to me.
So anyway, President Nelson becomes the prophet. We think we need to present to him the 15-year plan, which we're quite proud of and which had been well received by the First Presidency and the Quorum of the 12. We presented that plan to him within the first 30 days. He's listening carefully, taking it all in, and based on 4 or 5 temples a year, over 15 years, you get to about 60 temples for the whole plan. And I was the one who was making the presentation to him. At the end of the presentation, he looked at me and he said, Larry, I would feel better about your plan if there were another 0 behind that number of the total temples that you have in it. He's talking about 600, not 60.
Oh, wow. I cannot imagine what this last conference would have looked like if he hadn't died before he got to announce the remaining temples. He had to know that he was declining. Would he have just gone for it and announced another 200 or so he could get to that magical number of 600?
Well, obviously, he really meant it. And in that moment, I think I saw the first sign of where he was headed with temple building. So we redid the plan to catch up with his vision, and it greatly expanded what had been considered to be the going forward plan for future temple building. President Nelson says often that good information precedes good revelation.
A central belief in Mormonism is that the president of the church is a prophet, seer, and revelator who speaks with and for God. This is not meant to be a ceremonial title. Members are taught that the prophet receives literal, continuing revelation for the church. If a major decision like announcing temples, which are considered the most sacred buildings on earth, appears to be the result of a business strategy or a committee Committee's demographic study, doesn't that suggest that the church is led by corporate efficiency rather than direct revelation? Elder Wilson's account relies heavily on consultation and business meetings, making the temple announcements feel like the result of human agency and smart logistics rather than inspiration and revelation.
We explained the computerized tool that we had developed to be able to come up with this 15-year plan, the variables that we'd incorporated into it in terms of the membership of the church, tithing, faithfulness, growth of the church, distance to a temple, cost to get to a temple, various other variables. He's taking it all in. We make the presentation showing him year by year, here's the priorities that we have come up with using these variables, weighting them as described. And after we've finished the presentations, and he says, there needs to be another 0 after the total.
For so long, I wanted to believe that Mormon prophets actually see and talk to God or Jesus. No, they're just normal people.
And as we brought things forward, he immediately began announcing larger numbers of temples than had been done prior to that time.
I mean, I guess he was the prophet president of a multi-billion-dollar corporation. He can kind of do whatever he wants.
So he announced 200 temples. We are around 400 in terms of those that are operating or that have been announced and are in either construction or planning.
Did he go before his time then? Where are the other temples to round out Russell's dream of 600?
Did he ever announce any that you didn't know of and he just in the moment was just like, and another one?
There was. We had Russia on the list, a temple somewhere in Russia, but we didn't have a specific location and it was far down the list. President Nelson said during one conference when we brought in the 6 or 8 or 10 temples, I forget the number, for consideration, he said, we need to add Russia to the list. And so we did. Now, things are very difficult in Russia for the church right now, and I don't know when the church will be able to build a temple there, but they continue to look for opportunities. I'm confident we'll pursue those opportunities until we do have a temple in Russia.
And yet, there has still not been any further announcements about actually building a temple in Russia. Was he just trying to give the members there something to hope for? Because I can see that being a very hopeful thing for members there.
Well, the old way was to have all the planning done. A site secured. We had the approvals to be able to proceed to build on that site, and we wouldn't announce until those things were in place.
That seems like a good practice. They should have kept doing that.
There's a new way now. It was electric with the revelatory feeling that a prophet recognized that we are approaching a millennial day. There's some things that need to be in place, and a lot more temples is one of them.
I'm sorry. Jesus does not need expensive $1-million Mormon castles so he can come back to Earth to say hi to everybody. We turn now to a discussion of the upcoming South Houston, Texas temple. This topic came to my attention with inquiries from Rebecca Biblioteca regarding the site selection, and given the temple's proximity to my local area, I have been collaborating with her on the details. The temple was officially announced on April 7th, 2024, but its precise location has yet to be publicly named. The following discussion involving this temple happened on the Latter-day Saints subreddit. It's wonderful to hear a new temple announced for Houston. I have long been interested in the temple scene there. I lived in the metro area when the initial temple was announced, and I attended the dedication. In total, I was in Houston a dozen years. I raised my kids there, got my doctorate from UH, etc. I lived in 2 areas, each for 6 years, first in League City, Bay Area, and then in Cy-Fair. Professionally, I worked in Spring Branch, while my wife wound up working in West Houston and then in Cy-Fair. Although I no longer live there, in DFW now, I still have close connections. My never Mormon parents and my youngest brother and his family live in the Memorial area. All of them recently relocated from Sugar Land. I'm also a 7-time Houston marathoner on the road to a Legacy 10. When the original temple location was announced, a lot of folks were disappointed. It's in far north Houston, in a suburb away from the freeway. Given Houston's notorious traffic, it immediately seemed misplaced, some looking at a 90-minute harried drive to the temple from places like Katy and Galveston. It helped that President Hinckley apparently had quite a time finding the current location, personally haggling with the landowner to purchase the tract, making a close friend along the way. Awesome, but it didn't help the commute situation. But where would you put another, as wherever you placed it, traffic issues would still exist? It's a question I've thought about a lot, and have posted on this subreddit before. With the announcement of a second temple, I'd like to put my idea out there once again. The optimal spot for a second temple in Houston is somewhere in close proximity to the world-renowned, admired, and respected Houston Medical District, aka the Texas Medical Center, home to the famous MD Anderson Cancer Center, Houston Methodist Hospital, multiple medical schools, the Astrodome, and Reliance Stadium, all next to the Houston Museum District and Rice University. The Houston Medical District is in South Central Houston, inside the city, not in a suburb, and all Houstonians are used to commuting to the area, a spot that already draws folks from across the metro area, the state, the nation, and indeed the entire world. It also is in an area of recent very strong development and is the only area outside of downtown that has a solid network of public transit, light rail included. A lot of folks will hear about a new temple in South Houston and quickly assume it would be placed somewhere across the bottom of the Houston metro area. But the Bay Area and Fort Bend, Sugar Land, both of these would be a repeat of the first temple, in that each would continue to be remote to many looking for relief from the long, difficult commute to the current temple. The middle ground? Pearland. But those that are advocating for Pearland, I implore you to consider that you live the closest of all three areas to the medical district, just a couple miles north of your suburb. So here's where I hope the church builds the second Houston temple, inside this triangle of urban landscape. Notice Reliance Stadium and the Astrodome at the top of this south-facing pic. Just inside Loop 610, the medical center down below it, Rice University in the bottom right. This view is looking south. The Bay Area is 10 miles to the top left. Pearland is just a couple miles above the pic, and Fort Bend is probably 7 miles to the top right. Further, I think it's a great spot, not only for Houstonian commute times, but that it could become an extremely popular destination-type temple. Imagine a temple on the light rail route inside the 610 loop of Houston, by the Reliance Stadium, MD Anderson, and Rice University. A vibrant, exciting area that folks travel to for events and, unfortunately, for cutting-edge cancer treatments from across the world. Done well, it could be akin to the new Philly temple in presence, statement, and urban usefulness. Please consider. I think this person makes some fabulous points, but my own research, prompted by Rebecca Biblioteca's initial direction, suggests a different site for the temple. It seems the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is pursuing a location at the northwest corner of Fort Bend Parkway Toll Road and Sienna Parkway. This particular parcel is in the Sienna community of Missouri City, Texas. A key point is the current zoning for this land, which is PD8. PD8 permits various residential and commercial uses, but does not automatically allow for the construction of a religious facility. Therefore, the church will likely be required to secure a specific use permit, or SUP, from the Missouri City City Council to proceed with development. A public document that I found on the Missouri City, Texas website, prepared by the architectural and design firm REES, details the proposed land use for the temple, specifying a site area of 15.76 acres and a building area of 31,781 square feet. Intriguingly, one of the listed consultants is Kimley Horn, the same firm that represented the church during the contentious process of securing the conditional use permit for the Fairview, Texas temple. While the church's official location announcement remains pending, I anticipate their representatives will need to appear before the Missouri City City Council to secure the necessary specific use permit before any construction can commence. I drove out to the site a few days ago and snapped some photos. From a planning perspective, the location appears relatively straightforward, situated near major thoroughfares and adjacent to established residential areas, a pattern consistent with previous temple developments. However, it remains to be seen how residents in these neighborhoods will react when they realize a structure featuring the characteristic height and illumination of an LDS temple may occupy this prime space, which is currently designated for residential or retail use. Personally, I am oddly intrigued at the possibility of a temple being so close to where I live. I would absolutely take my kids to the open house and tell them about my first temple experience. Rebecca Biblioteca and I are going to be keeping our eyes peeled for further information about this temple and will continue to collaborate. Feel free to tell me your thoughts about the location in the comments, especially if you live in or are familiar with the area. I will include links to all of the public documents in the show notes if you'd like to peruse them for yourselves. And last up today, let's go to this great quote that made me think. It says, "Don't let anyone tell you that standardized tests are not accurate measures. The truth of the matter is they offer a remarkably precise method for gauging the size of the houses near the school where the test was administered." And that's your update for today, folks. I absolutely hope you have the day that you deserve.